Hello, everyone. This is another Friday. Oh, love your liver live stream. Let's see if we can't get this all centered, maybe sort of centered. My name is Dr. Garrett Smith, also known around these YouTube parts as the Nutrition Detective. If you want to find more from me after all this, go down into the description of the video, and I got all my links there. So, what are we going to go over today? A couple of things I posted about. One, I don't remember if I went over this before, but I wanted to go over an interesting study I found on bone broth, because everybody got into bone broth, right? One of the things, so what are we doing here? We're going over all the toxic stuff that people don't realize. They've been told and sold on these things that maybe didn't used to be as toxic 100 years ago, maybe didn't used to be as toxic 500 years ago, but are absolutely toxic today. And they may have been toxic 500 years ago, 100 years ago. It's just that people were exposed to fewer poisons, fewer meds, fewer shots, fewer industrial, agrochemical, petrochemical poisons, fewer cosmetics, fewer all sorts of, supplement poisons that people are taking on a daily basis nowadays. People were just exposed to less garbage that ruined their liver. That's why we do the Love Your Liver live stream, because if you can fix your liver and get your liver running right, that is how you fix everything else. So this bone broth thing. For those of you who still, I still haven't gotten on the live stream software. I've been working on other things. Got really cool developments going on in some of my did I touch on bone broth in 16 live stream 16? Well, thanks, Pierre. I'm putting this paper here. I don't remember if I went over it. I'll go over it again because it's a good thing to know, because so many people are just falling in love with bone broth. And honestly, I can tell you, I've never seen it do squat. I've never had anybody come to me and tell me that bone broth has done such amazing things to them. And if it did, they were probably protein deficient in the very first place, and they're simply getting more protein. People don't realize that when people are in pseudo starvation or starvation, self-induced or otherwise, if you simply give them more protein and more calories, including fat, that they make miraculous recoveries and all sorts of health issues go away. With your car, if you don't put enough gas in it, your car stops. With your body, if you don't put enough fuel in it, it eats away at itself and it slowly breaks down. So you don't just stop working like a car. You just slowly eat yourself alive and watch everything break down as it goes. So bones, what are bones really good at accumulating? Bones are extremely good at accumulating lead from the environment. They store it. It's in the same, I forget if it's in the same column. I think it's in the same column as calcium on the periodic table. Yeah, I'm not going to go look that up right now, but it's either right next to it, either sideways or above it, up and down. Lead is stored in bones. When you are doing your bone broth, you are trying to extract minerals from the bones. Well, lead is a mineral. So if there's lead there, you are trying to extract it from it. So let's go over this little paper here. The risk of lead contamination in bone broth diets. From quoting the authors, we therefore hypothesize that bone broth might carry a risk of being contaminated with lead. A small, blinded, controlled study of lead concentrations in 3 different types of organic chicken broth showed that such broths do indeed contain several times the lead concentration of the water with which the broth is made. In particular, broth made from skin and cartilage taken off the bone once the chicken had been cooked with the bones in situ, and chicken bone broth were both found to have markedly high lead concentrations of 9.5 and 7.01 micrograms per liter, respectively, compared with a control value for tap water treated in the same way of 0.89 micrograms per liter. In view of the dangers of lead consumption to the human body, we recommend that doctors and nutritionists take the risk of lead contamination into consideration when advising patients about bone broth diets. Organic chicken bones, skin, cartilage. If you guys haven't seen, I just did a big thread on Twitter about organ meats being contaminated in different countries from wild animals, in grass-fed New Zealand animals, and in conventional animals. And you know what metals were coming up constantly? There was lead and cadmium. So if you think your organic or your New Zealand grass-fed or your wild bones are clean, they are not. You can't assume that. And you know what happens when you assume? When you are making bone broth, you are trying to pull minerals out of the bone. Isn't that why people add vinegar to it? Right? You're trying to pull minerals out of the bone. Well, if there's lead there, you're going to be drinking lead. And there was 10 times. So they said in the water, treat tap water. Seriously, if you're still drinking tap water. But think about this. Let's say you're making your bone broth with really, really, really clean water. Reverse osmosis, distilled water, very, very clean water. Filtered water. This is not tap water. The emptier the water, the less minerals in the water, the more minerals it pulls out of the bone. This is why those of you who may be thinking about getting a whole house water filter, yet you still have copper water pipes going in and out of your water heater, if you send extra clean water into your water heater through the copper water pipes, you may be pulling off even more copper into that empty water. Now, I do love clean water. I like water to be as clean as possible. I would never, if I could avoid it, drink or consume tap water. But what they're saying here is in the tap water, when they made bone broth out of it, it went from 0.89, so about 0.9, up to 7 and 9.5. So it 10 times the amount of lead in the water. And that's tap water. So here is the sad truth. You can't trust anything these days. You must assume it is filthy, full of contaminants. So your main job in your finding food and water is you want it as clean as possible. As clean as possible. Oh, folks, I forgot to say, one of the things, if you want to help this channel grow, the things you can do, if you're in the chat, which I'm glad you guys are here. I got 27 people here. That's awesome. But if you're in the chat, click out of it, go and like the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, we're probably going to hit 3,000 subscribers this week. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, get us over that mark, that'd be awesome. And then if you haven't, I'm doing crazy threads on Twitter. I just did a whole big thread yesterday about, the whole, you guys may have heard around the sunning your balls theory about, sunning your genitals for guys, making your testosterone go up. I just did a huge thread on that here. Let me spoiler alert. I go over all the research showing how vitamin A basically destroys testicles, their function. And the funny thing is, I also cover how ultraviolet light, which was what was used in the study that all this is based on, destroys vitamin A in the testicles. Do you think this is a coincidence? It's not a coincidence. It's not magic. There's legit science behind this idea, this concept. I just bring it to light for people to see. So that was the bone broth thing. So let's get into the safety margin of vitamin A. People think that they've been mistakenly told that like vitamin A is super safe and you can just take in, if it's natural, you can just take in a ton of it. It's only the synthetic stuff that's a problem. Well, I have a video here debunking that garbage notion, and I have a thread on my Twitter, same stuff, debunking that notion. Natural vitamin A is absolutely the same amount of toxicity as synthetic forms. There is no difference when you were talking about the same form in the same dosage. There's no difference. Science says so. You're actually, if you're trying to say that they're somehow different, you're arguing that the chemists have it completely wrong. Remember, the same chemistry that discovered vitamin A, is the same chemistry that says the vitamin A found in foods and the vitamin A that's synthetic is the same. So you're saying the people who discovered it and then made exactly the same molecule synthetically, that somehow they're different, even though the thing they discovered in food was natural and the thing they reproduced it with is synthetic. It's the same chemical. You're denying chemistry if you deny that they're the same thing. And then there's Rodal's giant study from the 1950s where he gave a bunch of different forms of vitamin A, natural and synthetic, to a bunch of different animals. And he showed that there was all toxic in the same doses, in the same form. Oops. What you guys are living on, if you believe that they are somehow different, is called the appeal to nature fallacy, where you are saying if it's natural, it's good. If it's synthetic, it's bad. Sometimes it's all bad. Okay? So, vitamin A. I wish I could reproduce this stuff for you guys to see. But what we're going over here is we're going over the National Institutes of Health, the Office of Dietary Supplements. That link in there. What I want to go over, well, first, let me do this. Let me go over this. Where is it? Let me go over this paper. Safety factors and establishment of acceptable daily intakes. Safety factors, like how many times they want something to be shown to have no problems whatsoever versus the level that it starts to show problems. Right? Safety factors. You want to know something's safe, you want as large a safety factor as possible. Right? As is practical and possible. So the lower the safety factor between what they're going to say you need vitamin A at, which is pretty shaky by itself that you even need it. See the video on this channel, the vitamin A deficiency doesn't exist video, to start seeing that they've had giant populations of people who were diagnosed vitamin A deficient with none of the problems. Where's the problems? They couldn't find them. Weird, right? So the RDA, the recommended daily amount, versus what's called the upper limit or the tolerable upper limit, which is where they expect for most people adverse effects, as in side effects, as in toxicity, shouldn't start happening. In most people, it shouldn't be happening. If something was natural and safe, there should be a huge gap between those things. Huge. If it's natural and safe and you're supposed to have it, there should be a huge gap between there. Like, let's go over this. When they talk about adding things to food or other foreign compounds, if they are, let me just read this. Quote, the acceptable daily intake, ADI, the acceptable daily intake of food additives and other foreign compounds is derived usually by the application of a 100-fold, 100 times safety factor to the no observable adverse effect level in animal experiments. This safety factor is recognized as comprising two 10-fold factors, so that's 10 times 10, to allow for possible differences between animals and humans and for possible differences between individual humans. It doesn't matter how much your buddy Joe can take of this toxin. If you can't take that much and they're going to say, well, it's safe for me, it should be safe for you. Well, just remember, if you're a person getting side effects or toxicity, it doesn't matter what the literature says if it's 100% risk of damage and toxicity to you, right? When you get side effects, the risk of side effects, if you've got the side effect, is 100%. You got it. Doesn't matter how much it took, really. What matters is that you got messed up, right? It's like they'll say about the risks with the shots. Once you've had a heart attack or a stroke, your risk of that was 100%. That's what you got it. You're guaranteed now. And they just want to group you into a big old number so that you can look at this number and go, oh, that seems small. I'll just go and do it. So 100-fold. So 10 times 10. 2 10-fold factors. That's what they want. To show that things that are potentially toxic that they add to your food additives, which, again, if you didn't know, in our supplements, Nutrition Detective supplements, I make sure that we don't put additives and fillers in them, which is really hard to find these days if you haven't noticed. I take this stuff really seriously. They want a 100-fold factor. So if we go back to this vitamin A paper from the National Institutes of Health, I just want you to hear this. So birth to 12 months. The upper limit, safe limit, is 600 micrograms. Okay? 600 micrograms from birth to 12 months. Now, if you haven't seen my the video I go over where they're looking at liver toxicity, where they actually do the gold standard liver biopsy of vitamin A, they always find that kids are the most toxic in their livers. Up to about 10 years old, kids almost always are the highest. And then you know what other groups start to become the highest? Then you get into the 60s, 70s, 80s folks. So birth to 12 months. The upper limit is 600. Okay. You know what the RDA, birth to 6 months, is from that same page? It's 400 micrograms. They're saying the recommended amount is 400. But toxic, adverse, damaging effects could potentially start at 600. Lower for some kids, maybe higher for some kids. If you're a mom who, let's say, you shoved down a bunch of Weston Price vitamin A toxicity during your pregnancy because you were eating liver and egg yolks and dairy and, brightly colored fruits and vegetables, your kid's going to come out full of vitamin A too, and they're not going to tolerate as much. $400 is recommended. 600 is the tolerable upper limit where they expect problems to potentially start, but they could start sooner. Does that sound? So they wanted that paper I just went over, the safety factor. They wanted a 10 times 10, and you're at 0.5. How can something be necessary and yet be so toxic, with such a small safety margin? Let's do some other ranges. Let me see. Children 9 to 13 years. 600 micrograms is the recommended amount. 9 to 13-year-old kids, 600 micrograms. Children 9 to 13 years, 1,700 micrograms. Okay, so we got like a safety factor of close to 3. Close to 3. Remember, they want a safety factor of 100 for potential poisons that they add to your food. And you get a safety factor of less than 3. Now, remember, if let's say somebody goes and does things like medications or shots, or they've done fad diets where they really emphasize vitamin A, or they've done tons of vitamin D supplements, cod liver oil, high fat diets, low protein diets, high fructose diets, all these things cause liver injury, which means you detox stuff even slower, which means you could handle probably even less vitamin A. You don't even get a safety factor of 3. Now, I wanted to go over one thing. So I wanted to go over like baby food. Well, actually, let me go over, some of the other safe amounts that have been put in the literature. So I'm going to put this whole big link here. I'm not going to put all the links because it's a lot of stuff. Some other safety limits. So the Teratology Society. The Teratology Society tries to help prevent birth defects in babies. You know, they're trying to tell pregnant moms what to eat, what not to eat, so you don't cause birth defects in the babies. Now, I want you to know something. I have a video on this channel going over how vitamin A depletes B12 and folate. Okay. You may have heard about folate in pregnancy and how you want to have enough folate so that your baby doesn't get what are called central spinal defects, birth defects, spina bifida, that kind of stuff. They say it's caused by a folate deficiency. Did you know that vitamin A toxicity, when they talk about birth defects from vitamin A toxicity, it causes exactly the same type of central spinal defects that folate deficiency does? Isn't that a weird coincidence? The same type of birth defects are caused by folate deficiency and vitamin A toxicity. And I go over that research in the video of how vitamin A depletes folate. Okay. So from the Teratology Society position paper, I'll plug this in here. Here's a couple quotes from it. An average balanced diet contains approximately 7,000 to 8,000 units of vitamin A derived from different sources. Well, let me put that in the calculator here real quick. Let's just say, so I have a vitamin A calculator here. So that was 8,000. Let's just take 8,000. Oops, wait, that was the wrong one. So, hold on. Let me look at this again. I'm getting lost in my tabs. So, I want you to hear about the safety factor again. The average American diet, or average balanced diet, contains approximately 7,000 to 8,000 IUs, international units of vitamin A derived from different sources, okay? So I went on, I'm going to put this here, converting micrograms of vitamin A to IUs of vitamin A. Converting it. So here I am looking at the Institute of Medicine thing. It says adults 19 years and older. The tolerable upper limit where adverse effects could start. They might start earlier. They might start later. The tolerable upper limit for adults 19 years and older is 3,000 micrograms. I converted 8,000 micrograms into, 8,000 IUs into micrograms. It's 2,400 micrograms. So the average balanced diet contains 2,400 micrograms worth of vitamin A, and the tolerable upper limit where adverse effects are expected to start potentially is 3,000. Are you catching why there is a vitamin A toxicity epidemic today? Because just imagine if you get somebody who wants to eat healthy. They want to eat a rainbow. They want to use retinol creams and Accutane and egg yolks and dairy and liver and carrot salad and then eat it with lots of fat to make sure they absorb the maximum amount possible. Lots of tomatoes, lots of peppers, lots of orange juice, lots of whatever. They're easily double the average balanced diet. So the average balanced diet is on the verge of known toxicity. And then people are adding multivitamins and all sorts of garbage on top of that, or they're just trying to eat what they think is healthy. And then they wonder why they're getting sick. That's no safety factor. So let's go back to the teratology paper. The National Research Council's recommended dietary allowance for vitamin A during pregnancy is 1,000 retinol equivalents RE a day, which is equivalent to 3,300 IU as retinol, or 5,000 IU of vitamin A obtained from the typical American diet as a combination of retinol and carotenoids, e.g. beta-carotene. 3,300 IU. Half of the normal average balanced diet. They're saying pregnant women should get half of the recommended amount that people are eating on a daily basis. And they're talking like standard American diet is 7,000 to 8,000 units a day. And they're saying pregnant women should get half of that so they don't give their kids birth defects. Are we talking about a poison here? A poison that accumulates. During pregnancy, women have so much to detox. I mean, think about it. Like when they build a house, right? When construction workers build a house, they bring one of those rolling containers, giant garbage bins to throw all the waste in. Just think, when you make a human, think of how much waste you're making. Like, just like think of it as construction waste. Like you're making new parts, there's leftover stuff, you got to throw it out, you got to detox it. Pregnant women are on like detox overload. That's why, ladies, you often feel like garbage, especially if you go, the more toxic you are when you go into pregnancy, the worse you feel during pregnancy. So they just said that pregnant women should get half of the amount. So 3,300 IU, let me convert that. The 3,300 IU is 990 micrograms. So what they're saying there, if I look at this chart, the upper limit, pregnant women should get 990 micrograms, which is comparable to the safe limit of children 4 to 8 years old. Does this sound safe? Let's keep going. What amount of vitamin A has been shown to start causing osteoporosis and hip fractures in people? Well, this is also in here. Is this a Sci-Hub? No, this is a, let me put this in here. Everybody, I haven't even looked at the chat yet. I can't even begin. So I just want to say hi to everybody here. Hope y'all had a happy Thanksgiving. We're just going to keep rolling. So they are saying that, well, the conclusion of this paper, high dietary intake of retinol, all you retinol junkies, seems to be associated with osteoporosis. Here's another quote from it. For every 1 milligram increase in daily intake of retinol, risk for hip fracture increased by 68%. 1 milligram increase of daily intake of retinol in the diet, risk for hip fracture increased by 68%. For intake greater than 1.5 milligrams per day, compared with intake less than 0.5 milligrams per day, bone mineral density was reduced by 10% at the femoral neck. That's your hip bone, if you want to call it that. 10% at the femoral neck, 14% at the lumbar spine, and 6% for the total body. And risk for hip fracture was doubled. So let me translate that for you. When they compared women who consumed 5,000 units, not even the average. When comparing women who consume 5,000 IUs or more versus women who consumed 667 IUs or less, the women who had the higher intakes had 10% less bone density in their femur at the femoral neck, 14% less bone density in the lumbar spine, 6% less bone density across the entire body, and twice the risk of hip fracture. They're not even eating what the average balanced diet is. And when they're talking about 5,000 or more, that's not even 7,000 to 8,000. And they saw all these increased rates of osteoporosis. Vitamin A eats away at your bones. That's what it does. Eats calcium right out of your bones. I'm not going to go over, if you guys should go to this paper, I go over the amounts of stuff in there. Let me just go over one thing too about kids. I looked up where is it? Sweet potato baby food. Everybody's feeding their kids carrot baby food. You know, they squeeze in some spinach and they squeeze in sweet potatoes. So 100 grams of sweet potato baby food has 3,922 micrograms of beta carotene. So that's a lot. And they're going to go and feed that to a kid anywhere, probably up to I don't even remember how long we fed the kids baby food, somewhere 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. Everybody thinks they're being real healthy because they're giving these kids brightly colored fruits and vegetables. Go watch the vitamin A toxicity epidemic video on this channel where they go over the gold standard liver biopsy evidence. I just did a big Twitter thread on it too. I repurposed it for Twitter. In Africa in the 1960s, they were looking at 50% of the population vitamin A toxic diagnosed in the liver. 50%. But everybody says Africa is so vitamin A deficient, right? Anyway, there is no safety margin. That's not a safety margin. Going from 400 to 600 is not. 400 safe, and 400 is what you need, and 600 is too much. 400 micrograms to 600 micrograms, that's not a safety factor. That's the mark of a poison. So let me get, now that we've covered that, let's get into it, the questions. So for those of you who don't know, we do super chats here. Super chats are where you give us a little donation and it pops your question to the top of the list. Otherwise, we just start at the top and head down. So those of you who are popping questions at the bottom, I'm never going to get to them because I take a lot of time to answer these questions so that everybody can understand it. If you ever wanted more of my question answering and you wanted an unlimited number of questions that you could ask inside the Love Your Liver program at members.nutritiondetective.com, right after this, I jump over there and I answer questions uncensored for about another hour, 90 minutes, even up to 2 hours. So if you have a lot of questions that you wanted to get answered about this stuff, that is really the place that it's best done. We have Grant Genereux join us once every other month. He takes questions. It's a lot of fun. So anyway, here we go. Sam says, I have ED as an erectile dysfunction due to Accutane. which is a huge, so for those of you, I went over on my thread about the ball sunning. I go over so many ways that vitamin A just absolutely destroys your reproductive system. Accutane is, I'm just going to review here for people who don't know, Accutane is, or isotretinoin, is 13-cis-retinoic acid. That's what it is. That's the compound. When you eat vitamin A, some of it turns into 13-cis-retinoic acid. So when you eat vitamin A, your body turns it into the same compound as Accutane. That's one of the things it turns it into. It also turns it into the same compound as tretinoin, and it turns it into another form of vitamin A that is often used as chemotherapy called alitretinoin, which is 9-cis-retinoic acid. So we have 13-cis-retinoic acid, we have all-trans retinoic acid, we have 9-cis-retinoic acid. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Retin A is used as chemotherapy too, and Accutane is used as chemotherapy too. Chemotherapy is using poison to try to kill cancer cells before it kills you. You play that game, you play that bet long enough, it's like playing Russian roulette. You're going to lose at some point. You can't keep poisoning your body and expect to never lose. But anyway, so some of us, I never had to worry about the Accutane, but those who took Accutane, it causes liver injury, which then causes leaky bile. Your bile's leaking, your toxic bile leaking back into your blood, and that is the root of all these health problems. So, Accutane-related erectile dysfunction is, let me find that link. Oh, let me find it. Let's go. Where is it? There we go. I'm going to post this link here. This is the citizens' petition about sexual side effects of isotretinoin Accutane. You should go and look, because the thing that causes the most sexual dysfunction side effects, especially in teens, who do we give Accutane to again, mostly? Who's it causing sexual side effects, like making them potentially infertile for the rest of their lives if they don't get it fixed? And most people don't know how to fix it. They're giving it to teens. I don't know if this would sound like a plot of an evil movie to you, but it sure does to me. So anyway, back to this. I had eaten around. So I just want you, I'm going to set this up, Sam. This is not the place where I do individual troubleshooting. I'll give some general ideas here as to what could be going on. If people want my individual troubleshooting, that's when they work with me, and that's when they get access. Each package that somebody buys, where we do the hair testing, blood testing, I do the consult, and we do the 6 months of follow-up opportunities, which is I call office hours. That's where I do individual troubleshooting. Imagine having a practitioner who you could access twice a week. It isn't a small group setting, but you could access me twice a week to ask questions and to get troubleshooting. This is, I just saw somebody's list of supplements from their functional doctor. Their initial bill for supplements was something like $912. And this was after they paid for the consult, and this was after they paid for more labs than I could ever imagine running, because most of those labs are useless. And they were recommended hormone upon hormone and other stuff that's going to cause more problems than it solves. They were giving them rat poison vitamin D. If you didn't know, look up Terra D3 and Decon. It's rat poison. You need sun or ultraviolet light. That doesn't mean you need to take rat poison pills. If one were religiously inclined and they call vitamin D sunlight in a pill, that sure sounds like a concept of false light to me. false light in a pill. We just so happen to put it in high doses and give it to rats to kill them. And if your dog eats it too, your dog will probably die or be, have to go to the vet and you have thousands and thousands of dollars of bills because their kidneys are failing. Oh, and you shouldn't touch these rat baits either because you have to wear gloves so you don't absorb it through your skin. And if we have dairies that add too much vitamin D to the milk, people have died. So those of you out there who go, well, it kills rats, but it doesn't kill humans, they have added too much vitamin D to milk and killed people. So don't come at me with that. Just don't. It was experimented in South Africa as a genocidal bioweapon. I have that by the Mengele of South Africa. They experimented. They were going to try to poison people with vitamin D as a bioweapon. Don't take rat poison in a pill. Get some sunlight or get some UV light somewhere, tanning lamps, tanning beds. If you live somewhere, I don't think people should live somewhere where there's no sun 6 months of the year or 9 months of the year. I don't think that's a really good idea. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. I'm sorry if you live there and you're hearing this and you're going, well, what am I going to do? I don't know what you're going to do. But humans, we don't have a lot of hair so that we can get sunlight on our skin. And just because we can live places doesn't mean that that's the best thing for us. But anyway, back to this. I had eaten around 10% ground beef, but when I switched to lean meat, my ED went away for a week, but came back. Was I eating too much fat before, and are they now depleted, or can you explain what happened here? Okay. What we often see as part of this is we see cycles where we see improvements, and then things kind of fade back, and usually the improvements come back for longer. They last longer, and they're even more noticeable, and then they might go away again. And then they come back and they go away again. Now, if you can figure out what was causing it. Now, so sometimes this happens on almost every program out there. People just don't want to admit it, is that people start not eating enough. This can be a huge problem, just total calories. If you're not eating enough total calories, things are going to go bad after a while. You can't be on a, even though you may not realize it, when you eat whole foods, like real whole foods, especially whole foods that are high in fiber, they can fill you up, satiate you, and you don't get as many calories as you may need because you're just full. And you go, well, you're trying to eat to satiety, and you go, I'm full, I'm good, I don't need to eat anymore. But you didn't get enough total calories. So this is something that people always have to watch for, especially underweight people. Their liver's in a little bit of a rougher shape, and they got to get lots of calories. As we fix the liver, we see underweight people start to be able to hold on weight easier without having to shove down so many calories. But there could be a calorie deficiency. There could be, so I'm not looking, as far as I know, Sam, your name's not coming to mind. I'm not looking at your mineral levels, your zinc, your selenium, your molybdenum, your magnesium, your potassium. I'm not looking at any of that stuff. So I can't, what gets measured gets managed, as they say. And if I'm not measuring it, I can't manage it. And if I'm not getting feedback in a forum where I can do this, there's way too much context. As you can see, if you were coming to my office hours, we'd be talking about what are you taking? What are you eating? What changed? What else changed other than the meat? Are there other things going on? Is there tons of stress in your life? Are you shoving down too much soluble fiber? Because that can push detox too hard. There's all sorts of things. And this is not the place for me to, this is not the place for me to do individual troubleshooting. But those are some ideas that you can look at. And usually, oftentimes, people who are here, we typically have really intelligent people here. If I give you those lists of things, you can go and look back through and go, okay, I changed this, I changed this. This is, okay, he mentioned this might cause this problem. And then you can go back and figure it out and rewind and go, okay, this was not the only thing that changed. I changed this and this and this. Or my calories dropped. Oh my gosh, people, if you've never calculated your calories and all of a sudden you're wondering, why am I feeling tired and other things like this, you may just not be eating enough. So that's that. Sam had another question. So Sam's good. Sam gets here like right away. When I post the live stream, Sam's always here right away asking questions. So that's one. If you guys want to get here early, you can do that. Sam says, a couple more questions if you don't mind. Is it guaranteed that lactoferrin will help with bile ducts? There is no guarantee in health. Lactoferrin does a couple of things. Lactoferrin increases the production and excretion of bile. Lactoferrin helps generally improve ALDH, the speed of your aldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme, which is a critical enzyme in detoxification of vitamin A. And lactoferrin has research on it helping to increase the activity of the cholangiocytes, which are the bile duct cells, which is how you would fix cholestasis, leaky bile inside the liver, inside the bile ducts. And lactoferrin has been shown to help leaky gut, which is another way you could leak bile into your bloodstream. That's actually the main problem with leaky gut, is the bile going into your bloodstream. Here's the problem. I've gone over this before. Toxic bile, cholestasis, leaky liver, leaky bile ducts, leaky gut, bile going back up into your stomach, where your stomach can directly absorb the bile into your bloodstream. That's in the research. Bile going the wrong places is the cause of your health problems. The solution to fixing health problems is to get the bile to stay in the right place. We want to make bile. We want to excrete bile. We want it to stay in the right place. And if you're here listening to this because you got health issues, that means your bile is by definition going in the wrong place. We have this problem. And then we want to poop out as much bile as possible on a regular basis. So the way I put it is, the bile is the cause of your problems. The bile is the solution to your problems. Do you see that there could be a little problem there if you push things too hard? Now, lactoferrin, I just told you. So if you think of toxic bile as like hot lava, that just, it damages everything it touches. It doesn't mean the damage stays. Your body's constantly repairing damage. But if the toxic bile causes more damage than you're able to repair before the next wave of toxic bile comes through, you cause more damage. And then you leak more bile. If for an individual person, the toxic bile is, you're dumping more toxic bile and it's causing more damage, then let's say if the lactoferrin is causing you to dump more bile, then the lactoferrin can repair. You're going to end up with more toxic bile leaking into your system. This is what I call the lactoferrin cold. I have a link. This is why I have people start very slowly on the lactoferrin. If you look on the lactoferrin bottle under the suggested use, there's a link that I suggest people read to go up very slowly, so that if they see this problem happening, that they're causing more bile damage because the lactoferrin increases your bile production, they're causing more damage than they're fixing, then you back off or you take a break. Some people, they start the lactoferrin and they just they either feel very little or they feel like improvements right away. Those people are fixing the damage quicker than the toxic bile dumping increase. That link on the bottle is very, very important to read and take seriously. That's why I say this is not a game. So if, Sam, let's say you had increased your lactoferrin, or you had started taking lactoferrin, and all of a sudden you started seeing your old problems come back that were always related to toxic bile leaking into your bloodstream, and you inadvertently, you didn't know it, caused yourself to dump more bile, and you're still leaking, because that doesn't get fixed right away. This is a years-long process because you're constantly dumping bile. It's like picking a scab, right? We don't get to stop dumping bile. That toxic bile is constantly, coming out, and it's re-injuring your bile ducts, your liver cells, the intestines. And so if you push it too hard, this is exactly what I was talking about before. If you push things too hard, you can feel worse. That is why I say this is not a game. This is why I put a link to a whole page, because I can't describe how to be careful with the lactoferrin because it is super powerful. I can't describe it on the bottle. I do this because I care. How many other people out there are telling you with their supplements to start with 1/64th of a teaspoon? Actually open up the capsule and start with 1/64th of a teaspoon. I do that because I know how powerful this stuff is, and I tend to get really sensitive people, often people who have been damaged by medications. And some people, don't listen to me. I had a buddy with psoriasis. I told him, you're going to want, I look at the link on the label. Don't jump in with one pill, but if you jump in with one pill and things start getting a little worse, stop. He said he started taking one pill and things got a little worse, and he stopped. And he said once it calmed down, which can take weeks if you really aggravate things, he said his psoriasis was better than it had been in a long time. And now he started listening to me because this is a buddy of mine. I talk to him often. I said, you need to get on some charcoal. And he listened to me and he got on his charcoal. And now he's telling me he's taking the lactoferrin and the charcoal. Lactoferrin can cause increased bile dumping. Charcoal can soak up bile. He's listening to my advice, and he said the psoriasis is steadily getting better and better and better. And he's not even doing all my dietary stuff. When people listen and they realize this is not a game and they follow the instructions, we see improvements. If you're not in the Love Your Liver program, then you don't get the benefit of my do-it-yourself advice. And if you're not working with me, then you don't get the benefit of my years and years of troubleshooting people to help calm down. Oftentimes, people get themselves into problems because they're a little too overzealous. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired, which I understand, but that doesn't mean you get to get out of it faster. It doesn't mean just if somebody broke their leg and they have to rehab, they don't get to work harder and fix their leg quicker. There's just a certain amount of time that you need to fix the damage. You don't get to just be hardcore and do more rehab and do harder rehab, because if you do it too hard, you'll keep the bone broken. See what I mean? It's got to have rest to mend together. That's why we put casts on, is to hold it together. So what I'm saying is, if you're asking a question about lactoferrin and you wondering if it's the meat, if you increased your lactoferrin, if you tried that and you pushed it too hard, which is what I warn about, it's not that lactoferrin's bad, it's that it's really potent at increasing your bile production. You can push it too hard, too fast, very easily. Lots of people here do that. What people notice is when they find the right dose and they stay at the right dose and they go up slowly, they're often able to make big improvements, but they have to swallow their ego and be patient and not go too fast. So anyway, is liver/gallbladder flushing a real thing? I'm going to go to the next question. What kind of pan is the healthiest for cooking? I either have people, I tend to use good quality stainless steel or ceramic or glass. So stainless steel is typically the pots and pans. Ceramic or not porcelain, but not lead full porcelain, but ceramic or glass for the other cooking. That's generally what I do. So back to the other one. Is liver gallbladder flushing a real thing? Let me explain how the part that people don't understand about liver and gallbladder flushing and how it relates to the liver and the toxic bile. Typical liver gallbladder flush. I'm just going to go in generalities It's typically a couple days of eating very little or very light. Definitely low fat. The diets for liver and gallbladder flushing are almost always like 0 to no fat. What would this do? This would minimize your bile dumping. You would be storing up bile in your gallbladder. Then what do you do when it's time to flush? You take a bunch of things that cause you to dump bile and get diarrhea. Epsom salts, olive oil. The fat causes you to dump the bile. The Epsom salts or whatever else you're taking to induce diarrhea, because that's all you're doing. You're just taking a laxative, really. So this is the gallbladder. You squeeze the bile out with the olive oil, and then the Epsom salts come through and you squirt it all out. It's just a bile dump. It's just an engineered dietary bile dump strategy. The things that are in the toilet are not stones. It's emulsified bile with all the stuff you're taking. It's not stones. Stones don't float. So can it help? Some people have said it helps, yes. But a lot of people don't realize they do their liver and gallbladder flushing, and then they go right back to their high vitamin A diets. And they just get toxic again. And then they say, well, I got to do these flushes like twice a year to stay good. Well, if it was fixing something, you shouldn't have to keep repeating them on a regular basis. If you are getting liver and gallbladder problems, it means you're making toxic bile. Our first step should be, let's make the bile less toxic and make sure it goes where it's supposed to go, instead of getting stuck in the liver, which is fatty liver. Now, some people, I did a liver and gallbladder flush, I think once. I did not enjoy it. And I don't plan on doing it again. It was not fun. It was not worth it. There are some people out there who have gotten, they are just fine with doing it. And they're fine with, crapping their brains out. More power to them when they understand that it's the toxic bile that they're getting rid of. It's not doing anything magical in your liver. It's guaranteeing just about that bile you dump is crapped out and not reabsorbed. It's not cholestatically coming back into your bloodstream through leaky bile. It's not being enterohepatically reabsorbed, where your guts reabsorb the bile and send it back to the liver. That's why they force the diarrhea. This is what a coffee enema does. Coffee causes a bile dump. Enemas induce basically diarrhea. Do you see they're doing the same thing? Lots of people swear by liver and gallbladder flushes and coffee enemas. They're not understanding that it is their toxic bile that they're getting rid of. And the one thing that they're missing is they're not making their bile less toxic. If they did that over time, they should need fewer of these things. That's the whole goal, isn't it? I don't want people to have to be inducing diarrhea with Epsom salts or shoving tubes up their butt. That's not the goal of life. Now, if you have to do coffee enemas to poop because you're so cholestatic and your bile is going straight back into your blood and you feel awful and you have to do a coffee enema to poop, I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not saying that the liver and gallbladder flushes are not okay to do, or that coffee enemas are not okay to do. You can do them. Unless I was amazingly sick, which I'm not anymore because I've been doing all this stuff for 4 years, I'm not going to be inducing diarrhea or shoving tubes up my butt. If you do it and it helps you for now, more power to you. It's okay. Our goal, if you work with my stuff, is to make it so that you don't have to do that over time. If you still want to do it every once in a while, great. Go ahead. People enjoy doing all sorts of things. If you think it helps you to do them once a year, Cool. Great. If you're doing the right things, things should change in what you see come out of you. Things should be easier. You should feel, in a way, less relief as you go along in the process from those things because you're just not as toxic. So getting the toxins out doesn't make you feel as good because you're less toxic all the time. But there's probably things in those liver gallbladder flushes that I, depending upon which one somebody's doing, that I would disagree with, or I would think there are better things to do. Like, I'm not a fan of Epsom salts. I don't want the sulfate coming in. You could use magnesium. You could use any form of magnesium to give you the runs. It's just Epsom salts are just super cheap. But I would not be throwing a bunch of sulfur in there, personally. Anyway, okay. Well, kind of on the lactoferrin thing, how can you tell if you have a normal cold or if it's a lactoferrin cold? Now, this is a question that I go into in the Love Your Liver program. The main difference, a normal cold is a bile dump. That's what it is, folks. Why in the do we actually believe that there's a little protein that can't move, that just floats around and comes inside of us and then replicates and causes us all these problems? No, what you've done, a cold is a triggered dump of bile, a prolonged big dump of bile, and it leaks into your bloodstream and it causes you all these symptoms everywhere. Funny thing, you have all sorts of fluids coming out of you everywhere. Your body's trying to get rid of that toxic bile, and when the bile dump slows down and stops, you go back to feeling normal. If you're doing the right things and you were still getting colds or flus, if you do the right things and you don't try to stop the cold or flu, which is what most people do, which is what most natural remedies are trying to do, they're just trying to shut down the bile. If you get rid of all that bile, you feel better after it's all done. You feel better than you did before you got sick. You make health improvements. If you go in and you take a bunch of herbs and everything to just shut it down, which is what those do, you tend to keep getting sick and you tend to slowly watch your health decline. So a term, actually, Lindy, I'm going to update this. I haven't updated in the network, but I'm going to start calling it the lactoferrin creep and not the lactoferrin cold. Here's what I believe happens with the lactoferrin. This is why I have people go up slowly so they can figure it out. And this is why I also have that whole big article in there. This is the whole basis of chronic toxicity, is if you take in more of something than you excrete on a regular basis, you slowly become more toxic. So we're gonna tweak this a little bit. If you leaked, let's say, so lactoferrin increases your bile dumping. This is in the literature. If it caused you to dump more bile and you leaked more bile into your blood, even just a little bit on a daily basis, faster than your liver can clear it out, you will slowly accumulate bile in your blood. And so the lactoferrin creep happens, if assuming somebody's going up slowly, it happens over weeks to months, where people just start noticing, oh, this is kind of bothering me a little bit. This is typically when they're starting with the 1/64th teaspoon. They're starting the way I described. And they're like, I got this little thing. It's no big deal. It doesn't bother me. I'm going to just kind of ignore it, and I'm just going to keep going. And then they go up to 1/32nd teaspoon. And the problem, they start noticing it. It's a little stronger. But they typically don't start associating it. This is why I tell people, if something starts, when you start the lactoferrin, if you get a symptom and it slowly creeps up as you go up in dose, and it's just slowly creeping up, don't ignore it. Either stay at that same dose of lactoferrin until those symptoms completely clear away, which may be months, or take a break from the lactoferrin. A cold would be, something happens for a couple days, you get a cold, and it goes away. If you were feeling like all of a sudden you kind of got the sniffles and it's just not going away in a couple days, and then you keep going up in lactoferrin, or you stay at the same dose and it stays and it stays and it stays and it stays, that's the lactoferrin creep. And that just means you're just dumping more bile. You're getting rid of more bile overall, but you're also causing yourself to suffer, which I don't want people to do. So you just got to cut down on your dose. Or you can stay there. If you have the lactoferrin creep or the lactoferrin cold, and I'm not advising this, and you just stay at that dose for however many months it takes for you to clear that layer of toxic bile out, while you are steadily, keeping more bile in your blood than you have to, and that's what's causing the symptoms. If you want to do that, it should eventually go away. But I'm not advising that. If you keep going up in dose while you have the lactoferrin creep going on, you can steadily expect your symptoms, the bile symptoms, to steadily rise. But a cold is temporary and comes and goes. But the way we figured out the lactoferrin cold was I had a couple women come to me and they were saying, I feel like I'm just steadily, I have a cold. Like they're sniffly, they're allergy. It's like they're not sure if it's the sniffles or allergies, or are they getting sick? Like constantly catching colds. One woman worked with little kids, she was special needs kids. So she was around just sick kids all day. And she couldn't figure out why she kept catching colds. But between those two women, we figured out that when they stopped the lactoferrin, for however long it took those symptoms to go away, which was anywhere from 1 week, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 5 weeks is the longest I've heard of. All the symptoms went away. And then when they restarted the lactoferrin, they were able to take more. They felt better than they did before. Kind of like the guy with the psoriasis I just described. They felt better than they did before, and then they were able to take more lactoferrin and not have the problems again. So you can either, if you think it's the lactoferrin creep or the lactoferrin cold, it's usually been going on for weeks to months. This is not like a couple days cold. A lot of people refuse, against my better advice, they refuse to stop taking the lactoferrin. They're just like, well, I'm getting these other benefits. I don't want to quit taking it. I'm like, well, you can. My old joke about, Obamacare was if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. I say, if you like your disease, you can keep your disease. If you like what the lactoferrin's doing all around, you can keep it. You can keep the bad and the good. I'm not going to stop you. But if you get to the point where your symptoms are strong enough, negative symptoms, that you want them to go away, you got to either take less of the lactoferrin, enough to bring those symptoms down, or you take a break and let this all wash out. What happens is your liver starts clearing all that accumulated bile out of your blood, but it takes a while because the lactoferrin has been fixing your liver and fixing your liver's ability to make bile. So because your liver has actually structurally been improved, it takes a while for everything to catch back up to it. So the difference is really time and how it creeps up on people. If people just jump in at a pill, like we were talking about maybe happened earlier, I'm just theorizing on that. I don't know, Sam. But if people just jump in at a pill and they don't follow my instructions, and then they're just like, what the heck just hit me? I'm like, that's your toxic bile leaking back into your blood. That's why I give the instructions I do. You can't make people follow them. People don't realize just how toxic they are because all the toxicity stuck in their liver, and the lactoferrin can go in and start dumping it out. And it goes into the wrong places, because that's why we're sick, is because the toxic bile is leaking into the wrong place. So hold on. I saw a super chat. Let me get to that. Ramon asks, how safe liver-wise is lemon? They say to drink lemon water every day and to add lemon to everything because it detoxes the liver. Thank you, Doc. Well, thank you, Ramon, for that super chat. Okay, lemon. The big thing with lemon is mainly the lemon oil. the citraldehyde. Citral, they call it. Citraldehyde has been shown to directly slow down aldehyde dehydrogenase, one of the very, very important enzymes in vitamin A detox. So let me see if I can find the let me see if I can find this article. There was an article that an essential oil guy had written. Wow, interesting. I just saw this paper, carotenoid-related volatile compounds of tobacco. Well, we all know how healthy tobacco is, right? Carotenoid-related compounds. I just put that in there just for fun, just because I found it. Carotenoid profile of sweet orange and mandarin essential oils. That's just an interesting one again. Christina, I just saw that you mentioned that comments were turned off. I don't know why they were turned off. I'll go check. I didn't turn them off. So I can't find this. Wait, let me go into the Love Your Liver. See if I can find it. Maybe I did it on Facebook. There it is. Waiting for it to load. Hold on. Hold, please. There it is. Hopefully this website's still up. Let me check and see if the link is still good. Yes. Okay. So citraldehyde slows down aldehyde dehydrogenase. That link in there. Okay. Here's the quote. So somebody, hi, Robert. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on the following. A short course student of mine works in an essential oil / fragrance suppliers. Recently, she poured an unspecified amount of lemon-scented myrtle oil over her leg into her shoe, which she continued to wear for a number of hours until the end of the day. Her foot and leg turned an orangey red for over a week until she went on holiday and swam in the pool. The same student also spilled lemongrass oil onto her arm at another time. This also turned orangey red, but cleared up within a few days. I assume the aldehydes play a role in the discoloration, but wonder why the lemon-scented myrtle would stain the skin for such a long time. I have recommended that she takes milk thistle on a regular basis. Well, that'll just fix everything. Okay. Here's the answer. Wow, tough question, Joanne. I've never come across this before. Certainly there is a link between lemon-scented myrtle and lemongrass, as they are both very high in citral, aka citraldehyde, about 90% and 80% respectively. The orange-red skin sounds very much like an excess of beta-carotene and can be caused by eating a lot of carrots. In the body, beta-carotene is metabolized into retinol, then retinaldehyde, a form of vitamin A, and then retinoic acid. Citral inhibits the enzyme ALDH1A2 that carries out this last stage of retinaldehyde to retinoic acid. That's what normally happens. However, if in this person the citral instead inhibited the initial stage of metabolism of beta carotene into retinol, then an excess of beta carotene could build up in the skin so long as some citral was still there. Okay. Citraldehyde slows your detox. So lemon oil, that's typically you get that from the skin. The pith, the white stuff, bioflavonoids, those are polyphenols. So I wouldn't be doing a lot of the pith, the white part either. I would say though, if somebody was just doing a little bit of like, am I going to avoid lemon in my water, or on the rare occasion I decide I want to get a black tea at a restaurant? If I decide, I know I normally don't drink tea, but sometimes I'm at a restaurant, maybe at lunch, and I'm just like, you know what? I want to get a black tea and I'm going to get lemon in it. Am I going to avoid that? No. Am I going to, on a slice of lemon, am I going to take off the skin? Probably not. But other people might need to. But in terms of the amount of vitamin A that's in lemon juice, I don't think it's very much. It is yellow, but it's not very yellow. And there's not a lot, I don't believe there's a lot of citral in the actual pulp of the lemon itself. Do I think that lemon is necessary to detox? What likely goes on is that lemon may trigger a bit of bile dumping, which often helps people feel better. When people are really backed up, most sick people, if they start excreting a little bit more bile, like with lemon juice in their water, they tend to start feeling better. That's just the way it is. Because they're so bad at dumping bile because they're full of vitamin A, which I've shown vitamin A slows bile production. I've shown vitamin D slows bile production. Did that on Twitter just this last week. So when they start dumping more bile, they feel better because they're so full of toxic bile and they're already leaking it. So dumping a little more bile means they get rid of a little more. It doesn't mean they necessarily feel worse because they already feel bad. Most people have no idea how bad they feel walking around on a daily basis until they feel better. So hope that answered it. Ramon, I'm not worried about a little lemon juice here and there, but lemon scented things like lemon oil stuff, anything. I have a list here. I had a list on my, let me go through the essential oils that citraldehyde is concentrated in and which ones you want to avoid. Orange oil, bergamot oil, or however you pronounce that, bitter orange, petitgrain, lime oil, lemon balm, lemon grass, lemon myrtle, lemon ironbark, lemon tea tree, lemon verbena, May Chang, wild basil, Litsea citrata, Lindera citriodora, Calopranthis periculata, Cymbopogon citratus. You see all the citrat in there. Okay. All the lemons, all the citrat. So those are going to slow your ability to detox citraldehydes. But how safe, like lemon juice, a little bit of lemon juice here and there. Am I going to never have lemonade again? I'm going to have some lemonade here and there. But it's not something, I don't tend to eat much sugar these days. And I'm not worried about lemon juice here and there. Am I going to avoid orange juice? Yeah, I'm going to avoid orange juice. Nice thing about lemon juice is it's also low in sugar. I want to say, wow, thank you all for all the comments and the chats here. I think 60 people live right now. We got 60 people here. We got 25 likes. So if those of you who haven't liked it yet, if you can go click out of the chat and go like it, that helps to get this out to more people. We may have a record of live people here today, so that's cool. But thank you for all the comments. And then if you watch this video later, leave a comment below. Like I said, I don't know why the comments were turned off last week. I'll go fix that. But yeah, the comments do help everything. Allison asks your thoughts on fulvic acid, good or bad, and shungite for protection from EMF. I think shungite is pretty good for protection from EMF. I'm going to give a quick endorsement here of stuff that I have found actually works. I've had clients who told me it worked, told me, and then I tried it, and I absolutely believe it helps. And it's the least expensive EMF stuff that I've seen. It's Vortex BioShield. Here, let me see if I can find their website. Well, let's see. They say their website is under maintenance. I'll just put it here. They have their what is going on? Anyway, but that's the products. You can find them, I think, on Amazon. I do believe they sell on Amazon. Wow, I don't know if that link is right. It says all their social media stuff is not going through for me. But anyway, Vortex BioShield. I use their phone, what the little circle thing that pops out on the phone. I don't even remember what that's called. I'm so like not hip on all that stuff. The pop-up, whatever. Anyway, I use that. I use their big ones on my modems. I can tell you that they were doing some more alternative testing. So people who are in the EMF field, they wanted to either block it. They either want distance or blocking. Well, in the real world, you can't block your cell phone signal because then your cell phone doesn't work. There's no point to having it. You can put it in a Faraday bag all you want, but then you don't receive calls or texts, or there's no point to having it. Which is cool enough if you can live your life without having cell phones and stuff like that. More power to you. I hope to someday join you. But for now, I can't exactly do that. But the Vortex BioShield, stick them on your modems, stick them on your phone. They're like $20 each. And you'll notice that your phone, you just put this thing on it and your phone will get less hot when you use it. How does that work? It's doing something. And then if you go and watch the Vortex BioShield tests, or you read about the tests they do, they're doing various electroacupuncture by Vol EAV stuff. They're taking aura pictures. They're doing all sorts of stuff to try to show that it works without blocking. I use this stuff. I do believe it helps. I don't care for your opinion on it because it's cheap and I think it works. And other people have told me that it works. And I really like this company. Apparently the owner will chat up people on the phone for, quite a bit of time. So that's what I use. You're not going to avoid this stuff. Over time, getting rid of EMF sensitivity involves getting rid of copper overload, copper toxicity. Copper is the most conductive metal that we come across in our daily lives, right? Why do we make copper wires in the walls? Because it's the most conductive metal that we have a lot of access to. What do I fix in people all the time? Copper toxicity. So imagine if you had too much of a conductive metal floating around your body, in your brain, and other stuff like that, do you think you might become sensitive to electric fields? Part of electromagnetic fields, EMF, right? The other thing is iron. I fix iron overload all the time. Funny thing, vitamin A increases your absorption of iron. Did you know that? It's really funny that there are people out there talking about iron overload and also pushing tons of vitamin A in their protocols. They constantly tell people they got to go donate blood to get rid of all the excess iron in them, but you got to take vitamin A in your food and in your cod liver oil and all this stuff when vitamin A increases iron absorption. Maybe why I get their people once they realize that it's not working. So, iron being the most magnetic mineral that we come across on a regular basis. You got too much iron in your system? Is it going to make you a little too magnetic? Yeah. So if you have copper toxicity and iron overload, or one or the other, you're going to become more EMF sensitive. And I can tell you, vitamin A toxicity and copper toxicity, absolutely hand in hand. They come together. Iron overload, I see it in probably 90% of the people who come to me. I have fixed my copper toxicity. I'm waiting on my updated blood work. I think I'm going to do it in about 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll see that what little bit of iron overload I have left is gone. But I fixed my EMF sensitivity. I don't have it anymore. Do I still think that having just random EMF coming off modems, Wi-Fi, and phones is good? No. We turn off the Wi-Fi at night here every day. It's better if you can turn off the signal. But if you can't, then I like the Vortex BioShield stuff. It's inexpensive, and I absolutely believe it works, and I hear from other people that it works. So, fulvic acid, I have never seen it do jack squat. And if you're taking fulvic acid and they say it's got all the minerals in it, that means it's also got all the bad minerals in it. And if the fulvic acid is helping you to absorb more of it, then it's helping you to absorb more of the bad minerals. I have just never seen the magic in it. Maybe it works. I don't want all the extra stuff in there. So I never saw it. I used to do fulvic acid. I tried shilajit for a while with people. I had just as many people have negative reactions to shilajit as I had ones who told me that maybe it helped a little bit. It was so many supplements out there when I try them with multiple people and I have my sensitive people, tons of supplements become meh or wow, this is really not worth the people who have bad reactions to this. It's totally not worth using this on everybody who might need it. When you have the sensitive people that I work with, you start to, you develop patterns very quickly on things. So, okay. Allie says, I have to complain. I cannot buy a pie from the store without added vitamin A and vitamin D. Let them eat pie without vitamins. Yeah, right. Let them eat cake. Let them eat unfortified cake. For our Thanksgiving, we're doing Thanksgiving on Saturday. My kids were with the ex for actual Thanksgiving this year. We're making an apple pie. My daughter is making an apple pie. She's quite the little baker. So should be good. I'll have a piece. I don't normally eat much sugar, but I will have a piece of my daughter's apple pie, homemade. So Dom Juan asks, meat and fruits, green apples, bananas are a good diet while healing from leaky gut. I tried meat plus starch, but my leaky gut doesn't agree with it, maybe because of lectins and anti-nutrients. A high meat and fruit diet is not a bad diet at all, especially low vitamin A fruit diet. Not a bad diet at all. I eat something fairly similar to it. I do a lot of beef. I do some dark meat chicken. I do on my workout days, I do 4 bananas a day right now. I do 2 before I work out. I do 2 after. I have some low vitamin A vegetables in my diet. Some people do great with starches. Those of you out there, so this is, when I tell people my diet, all of a sudden they go, well, oh my gosh, Dr. Smith's not eating this. I should stop eating this. And I'm like, no, that's exactly why I don't tell people what I eat most of the time, because people think I have some magical handle on the perfect diet. And I don't believe in a perfect diet for everybody. What I'm going to tell you is that in my life, as I have gone through it, and I'm a pretty observant guy, I've noticed what I feel best on and what I don't feel great on. You know what I feel really good on? Meat and fruit. Low vitamin A fruit especially. And then I'll throw in some, like I tend to do well, like you're talking about, Dom, I tend to do well on relatively non-starchy vegetables. Low vitamin A ones at that. So that's what I found works best for me. I've experimented with oats. I've experimented with barley. I've experimented with beans. I still do them on occasion. I do beans about twice a week. But when I did them every day, I didn't feel as good as if I did them more rarely. But that doesn't mean that everybody else should go and start copying my diet. I have people who tell me the most amazing thing I ever did in the Love Your Liver program was tell them that beans were okay. And they eat beans 2 or 3 times a day and they feel amazing. better than they ever have. Am I going to take that away from them just because that's not what I eat? No, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to help people figure out what works best for them. Genetic wise, I remember my father told me when I was like, I think I may have been in naturopathic medical school at the time. So I was in like my early 20s. And my dad goes, you know what I've noticed? If I ever want to lose weight, if I just go to eating meat, fruit, and vegetables, I just get down to the weight I want to be at. And at the time I was like, I don't think it's that simple, Dad. He's like, no, it works for me that way, my dad, being observant, a pattern recognizer. And now that I'm older and now that I see how I feel with things, he's right. Did I say anything about low carb in there? I didn't say anything about low carb. I didn't say anything about keto. I didn't say anything about high fat. I said, I've noticed the pattern of foods that I feel the best on. So that's what works for me. So if you take what I just said and you turn that into your diet, I mean, the general you out there, that's not what was intended. And if you do that and you come back and you're like, I tried to do that, I didn't feel good, I'm going to be like, I just told you not to just go and do that. Why'd you do that? Well, because you said to. I didn't say to. The people out there who are just like, everybody should just eat all muscle meat all the time. There's a trail of bodies behind that, of all the people. You know what most health gurus do is they take the testimonials from the people who did really well on it and they ignore all the people. I just heard somebody on Twitter talking about a guy who spurged out on me, and they're like, oh yeah, I heard all these stories about people who went to the hospital and the ER from this guy's flush niacin recommendations and all this stuff. And this guy's sending me a link to his testimonials as this other person is telling me they're hearing about all the hospital trips. It reminds me of the homeopathic ND in my naturopathic school who said he had a 99% success rate. And I was like, I know multiple people, just me, who didn't get fixed by him. So what he did was he only counted the people who stayed and got better. He ignored everybody who quit. I get one of the reasons I do the 6 months of support is because I don't want to abandon people after a consult. That's not the point. Or nickel and dime them to come back every time they've got a question. We do things differently here. This is not an easy road out. This is why I say this is not a game. But what do I also do? I give people the support so that they don't have to play the game by themselves. Katrina, well, basically, let me just double check. I don't think we had any more questions. Let me see. Wow, it's jumping all over. Oh yeah, I saw that. Will, thank you very much for that. Will says starting to not tolerate beans, copper likely, and how much charcoal psyllium should I use to substitute? So the bean thing is weird. It can happen to some people where they're doing great on beans and then they start kind of not doing so well. And Will and I, chat, and I know some of Will's history, and Will got. Well, I'm just going to say it, Will, because you've posted it before on Twitter. Will said that his family moved into a house where they had copper water pipes all through it, and everybody in his family started gaining weight, like a lot of weight. So Will has a very strong history of copper toxicity. Beans do have a fair bit of copper in them. Could this be part of his issue? Could he be getting, as his health gets better, like the beans at a certain point, let's just say it was copper. Okay. The beans at a certain point were his diet was lower in copper than it used to be. Or he fixed enough things in his diet that he then started improving. And then he starts to get to a point where his intake of copper is now at a threshold where he's starting to notice he doesn't feel as good when he eats them. The improvements are slowing down. Could it be copper? Could it be lectins? Could it be whatever? We don't know. What do we simply do? Will knows this. If you don't feel good eating something, eat less of it or take it out for a while. Maybe you can come back to it. I used to eat tons of beans. I used to eat a can of beans a day, plus like a cup of oats, plus apples. Like it was a lot of soluble fiber, plus psyllium fiber. So how much charcoal and psyllium should he use to substitute? I'm going to be writing, everybody here who's on the Love Your Liver program, I'm going to be posting an article. I've still been working on writing and researching all Thanksgiving weekend. I'm going to be writing the article on Sunfiber and charcoal and how to use those, I believe, later today. This is actually one of probably the most breakthrough articles in the whole program, especially for people who like friends and family of yours, folks who aren't going to change their diet. They're just like, I don't believe in this vitamin A BS. I'm just going to keep eating. Everybody else is eating it. And you look around and everybody else is sick and you go, that's not a good logic. Everybody else is sick. Why are you eating the same crap as them? Right. Anyway. But it's going to be, I think, much more advantageous to look into the Sunfiber aspect rather than the psyllium. Psyllium's still good. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, you could look into your typical amounts of here's the thing about psyllium. So when we're subbing out, first of all, charcoal's not fiber. Charcoal is so good at soaking up bile. I have a 13 or 14 article series in the Love Your Liver Network about charcoal, exploding all the bullshit myths about it. And it soaks up your nutrients. And there's not a single study that shows that. There's not a single study that shows anywhere ever activated charcoal has caused a nutrient deficiency in a human. There are studies in rats and mice showing increased longevity in old mice. Old mice. But what is charcoal really good at doing? Why would it cause us? Charcoal soaks up vitamin A. Charcoal soaks up bile. Charcoal's so good at soaking up bile because you need bile touching your intestines to trigger your pooping mechanism. Charcoal's so good at soaking up bile, it constipates people because it soaks up the bile trigger that helps you poop. If you don't poop well, anybody out there, you don't have enough bile in your guts. It doesn't mean you're not making enough. It means you're not getting enough into your guts. And a big portion of it's probably going back into your blood, which is why you don't feel good. You made the bile. It just went back into your blood. Now you got hypothyroid problems. Now you got skin problems. Now you got kidney stuff going on. Like it's the bile's going the wrong way. So if you don't have enough of it going into your guts and you tend towards constipation, do not throw charcoal on top of that. Unless you don't want to poop for like 2 or 3 days. The Sunfiber that I'm going to go over in an article, I'm going to have a protocol for starting it. I know I don't like the word protocol. Maybe I'll find another word. Maybe I'll go to the thesaurus and I'll find a different word. Because I really don't like that word protocol for a very specific reason. But the thing about psyllium or any of the other kind of supplemental fibers, pectin, psyllium, that stuff is there's no calories. So you take out beans. I've had some people come to me, they were eating 3 cans of beans a day, and I was like, whoa, let's pump the brakes on that a bit. Yeah, I've had 2 people come to me with that, and they were doing more soluble fiber than I suggest in a day. I suggest if you cap your soluble fiber at 30 grams a day, there's no need to go over that. So psyllium doesn't have any calories. Charcoal, unless you're pooping well already, if you're constipated at all, or you're only pooping once a day, charcoal's not for you yet. I'm a bigger fan of Sunfiber now. And we're going to get into the protocol and all that stuff on how to do it. So that's going to go into the Love Your Liver program. Hopefully today, if not today, then tomorrow morning, Saturday. And you could substitute out. You could look at. I think I have it somewhere on the network about how many grams of soluble fiber are in psyllium or Sunfiber, and you could sub it out. You could just do gram for gram about how much beans you were eating in terms of soluble fiber, about how much soluble fiber is in psyllium or Sunfiber, and then just do that. But then you just got to make sure that your calories are not dropping too much because you just took out a food and you replaced it with a somewhat purified supplemental source of fiber. That's the big thing. So it's not an easy substitution to just be like, do this, but you could go gram for gram on the fiber. Okay. Pierre was commenting. Pierre was saying white beans are superior with a smiley face. White beans don't have the polyphenols. They don't have the vitamin A. They don't have the plant pigments that mark poison. So in that way, yes, white beans in general are superior in terms of their lack of toxic aposematism, which means nature's marking them as poison compounds. But then again, with beans, the thing to remember about beans is it's only the outer part of the bean that generally has the color. The inside of most beans is white. So even though there are some colors, black beans, I'm not a big fan of kidney beans at all, but obviously those are very purplish, magenta, reddish, somewhere in that spectrum. A lot of color in kidney beans. Kidney beans that have been prepared or stored wrongly have like killed people. So I'm not a huge fan of kidney beans. But other red beans, purple beans, black beans, not purple. There's not a whole lot of purple beans. Sorry, that slipped out. But just the less color in the beans, the less poisons are there. So there is that. But certain other beans like pinto beans are probably the highest copper bean. That may be an issue for some people, even though pinto beans are, kind of that light brown color, which is not a terribly toxic color. So anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up because I got to get to my inner circle now. So let me just double check. No more super chats. So for those of you who kind of want like more of a story intro to the vitamin A toxicity thing, I highly suggest here. I'll type it on here. The website is Genereux blog. That's Grant Genereux's website. He's the guy who got me into this. I will always be forever grateful to that man for using his engineer brain to figure out his chronic kidney failure, his jaundice, and his eczema. And then on his website, he has 3 free ebooks where he goes over his journey, and it's more storyish, which some people like. I just got a Facebook message today from somebody who said, I just got done with Grant Genereux's book, and holy cow, it's amazing. It really is a very good book, and it's free. So go check it out. If you I don't always go back and establish everything like Grant did, because Grant did all that work. And Anthony Mawson has done. If you look up Anthony Mawson, I have all 34 of his vitamin A related papers, his liver injury, cholestasis, vitamin A related papers. I have all those in an article in the Love Your Liver program. You can just go on PubMed and search Anthony Mawson, and you can find all of them. That's where I got them from. But between Anthony Mawson and Grant Genereux and me, that's we're the team really pushing this. And I'm the guy out there dealing with, helping people to get fixed daily. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up. If you want to work with me directly, go to nutritiondetective.com and look for the consultations tab. If you want to do the do-it-yourself Love Your Liver program, along with 1,500 plus other people in a functional and helpful form of a social network instead of all the other garbage out there, That's at members.nutritiondetective.com. And yes, there's a fee. Anyway, I got supplements. I got a couple of the basic supplements I use, the lactoferrin we were talking about here. We got that at nutritiondetective.com, and the keystone minerals and all that stuff. We're coming out with more products, hopefully very soon. And yeah, for those of you who are in the Love Your Liver network, the Sunfiber and the charcoal and how to work that will be coming out, like I said, either today or tomorrow. And then I'm going to do a big old thread on the toxicity of tattoos on Twitter soon. That should be a fun one. Anyway, hope you all have a great Thanksgiving weekend, the rest of your Thanksgiving weekend, and I will see you all next time. Bye now.